I'm Clara, 28 years old, and I never expected my own mother, Eleanor, to treat me as little more than a financial resource. For 5 years, I diligently paid rent to live in my parents' investment property. I worked tirelessly, building my career, and never once sought handouts. Then my unemployed brother, Leo, his partner Maya, and their 2 children moved in with me. Suddenly, Eleanor abruptly demanded I pay double rent for the privilege of housing her favorite child. Little did she know, I had my own surprise awaiting. If you are watching this now, please give this video a thumbs up and become a subscriber of Echo Tales. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how I managed to turn the tables on my family of freeloaders. I've always been the most responsible member of my family. While other students were enjoying college parties, I was juggling part-time jobs and maintaining a strong academic record. I graduated with minimal student loans because I applied for every scholarship imaginable and worked consistently throughout my entire education. After college, I secured an initial role at a marketing firm and, over 4 years, ascended to a specialist position through sheer dedication, consistently working extra hours and embracing tasks others shied away from. My relationship with my parents was always cordial, if a bit emotionally detached. They were proud of my accomplishments, but never quite as expressive about it as they were with Leo. Still, we had a pragmatic arrangement that served us both well. 5 years ago, when I was 23 and just embarking on my career, they offered to rent me the 2-bedroom apartment in their investment property at a rate slightly below market value. The place needed work, so I agreed to handle minor repairs and updates myself in exchange for the discount. I painted every room, replaced the outdated kitchen hardware, and even installed new light fixtures throughout the apartment. What started as a bland, lifeless space blossomed into a warm, inviting home that filled me with pride. I treated that apartment with the utmost respect, recognizing it was not only my sanctuary, but also my parents' investment. Every month, without fail, my rent payment landed in their account on the first. If I ever needed a repair beyond my expertise, I covered the material costs myself and only asked them to handle the labor. I was the quintessential model tenant, and they frequently told me how much they appreciated not having to worry about their property with me residing there. Meanwhile, my older brother Leo, who is 32, embraced a vastly different approach to life. Since high school, he had been the perpetual source of family drama. He never completed college, bouncing between 3 different universities before dropping out entirely. His employment history was a series of short-lived roles he held for a few months at most, before quitting because the boss was unfair, the hours were too demanding, or the work was beneath him. Leo had a knack for finding partners willing to financially prop him up until they realized he had no intention of contributing equally to the relationship. His current partner, Maya, had been with him for 8 years, though I never quite grasped why she stayed. She worked sporadically as a substitute teacher, but quit once they had their first child, Finn, who is now 7. Their daughter, Willow, arrived 3 years later, and Maya never returned to work. The pattern with Leo was always the same. He'd call her parents with some financial emergency. The car broke down. The landlord unexpectedly raised the rent. Finn needed expensive sports equipment for a team Leo insisted he join. Our parents, especially Eleanor, always came through with funds that were never repaid. My father, Arthur, occasionally grumbled about it, but he never put his foot down. I had attempted to establish boundaries with my family years ago. When Leo asked me for a $1,000 loan 3 years ago, I refused. He didn't speak to me for 2 months afterward, and Eleanor subtly layered on the guilt until he needed her for his next crisis and conveniently forgot about being angry with me. Despite the family dynamics, I was making consistent progress on my own goals. I had been promoted twice at work and was now earning a comfortable salary. I had a 5-year plan to save for a down payment on my own home, and I was already halfway to my target amount. My career was flourishing, and I had recently been put in charge of a major advertising campaign for a new client. The first sign of trouble appeared during a Sunday dinner at my parents' house 3 months ago. Eleanor offhandedly mentioned Leo was again struggling with his landlord. "That landlord is utterly inflexible," she said, dishing out potatoes. He expects the rent on the 1st of every month. No exceptions. I nearly choked on my water. Mom, that's what landlords do. That's what you and Dad do with me. That's different, honey, Eleanor said, patting my hand. We know you're reliable. Leo has the children to consider, and Maya has been looking for work. Arthur cleared his throat. 6 months of looking seems excessive. Eleanor shot him a look that instantly silenced him. I recognized the warning signs, but hoped I was mistaken about where this was headed. Anyway, Eleanor continued, they might need a place to stay for a little while, just until they get back on their feet. I focused on cutting my roast beef into precise pieces. That's unfortunate. Have they looked into affordable housing programs? We thought they could stay with you, Eleanor said, as if I hadn't spoken. You have that second bedroom you use as an office. It would just be temporary. The word temporary, coming from my mother regarding Leo, had long since lost all meaning. Temporary loans became gifts. Temporary help became permanent support. Mom, I work from home 3 days a week. I need my office space. You could set up a desk in your bedroom, she suggested, as if it were the most reasonable solution in the world. Family has to help family, Clara. I looked to Arthur for support, but he was suddenly deeply absorbed in his green beans. I knew that expression. He disagreed with Eleanor but wouldn't contradict her. Besides, Eleanor added, the children need stability. Think of your niece and nephew. And there it was, Eleanor's most potent emotional leverage. If family obligation didn't work, bring in the children. I felt the familiar weight of guilt pressing down on me, even as the rational part of my brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. I'll think about it. I finally conceded, knowing that in my family, that was as good as saying yes. That night, I called my best friend Chloe and explained the situation. They can't be serious, she said. Your apartment is what, 800 square feet? Where would 4 extra people even sleep? The second bedroom could fit the kids on a bunk bed, I said, already problem-solving despite myself. Leo and Maya could use a sleeper sofa in the living room. Clara, Chloe's tone was firm. This is a blueprint for catastrophe. You've worked too hard to get where you are. Don't let them derail you. But I knew I would say yes. I always did when it came to family. The following weekend, I helped Leo, Maya, and the children move their essential belongings into my apartment. What they deemed essential seemed to encompass Leo's extensive gaming rig, Maya's sprawling shoe collection, and a volume of toys sufficient to outfit a small nursery. We really appreciate this, sis, Leo said as he directed me on where to place his third box of video games. It will just be for a month or 2 tops. Right, I said, already feeling a creeping sense of claustrophobia as my formerly spacious living area seemed to constrict with each box they brought in. We should establish some ground rules, though. Maya rolled her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking, but I pressed on. I created a chore chart, designated shelves in the refrigerator and pantry for each of us, and set quiet hours for when I needed to work or sleep. I even drew up a simple agreement stating they would contribute $200 monthly toward utilities and groceries. Leo signed it with a flourish. No problem, sis. We'll be the best roommates ever. You won't even know we're here. As I would soon discover, that promise, like so many others for my brother, was completely empty. The family dinner where my parents dropped the bomb about Leo needing a place to stay had been uncomfortable, but nothing prepared me for the reality of having 4 additional people in my meticulously arranged abode. I had agreed to a temporary arrangement, emphasis on temporary, with explicit stipulations that I thought were more than reasonable. It will just be for a month or 2, Arthur had assured me when they helped move the first load of Leo's family's belongings. Just until they find another place. Eleanor had nodded in agreement. And of course, they will contribute to the household, she added, though I noticed she carefully avoided specifying how or how much. Leo himself had made lofty assurances. I've got a couple of really promising job leads, he told me, hauling in a massive flat-screen television that made my modest 32-inch model appear diminutive. One of them is practically a done deal. Just waiting on the paperwork. Maya had been less committed in her own assurances. I can watch the apartment while you're at the office, she said, as if her presence was somehow a favor to me rather than the other way around. Despite my misgivings, I had truly tried to make it work. I cleared out my second bedroom, cramming my desk and work equipment into an awkward corner of my bedroom. I bought extra towels, made space in my closets, and even picked up extra groceries before they arrived. I was determined to be the bigger person and help my family through this rough patch. The night after they moved in, I called Chloe to vent. They brought 3 carloads of stuff, and Leo says there's more in storage. I told her, whispering from the confines of my bedroom closet to avoid being overheard. Where am I supposed to put all of this? This is exactly what I was worried about, Chloe replied. They're exploiting your generous spirit once more. It's just temporary, I said, not entirely convinced myself. And their family. Your family has a peculiar interpretation of familial support, Chloe pointed out. It seems to flow only in one direction. I knew she was right, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. I've made it clear that this arrangement has an expiration date, 2 months max. Chloe's silence spoke volumes. The first week of cohabitation was awkward, but manageable. We danced around each other in the small kitchen, exchanged pleasantries about our days, and generally tried to maintain the illusion that this was a normal living situation. The children were well behaved, initially clearly sensing the tension and uncertain of their place in this new environment. But as the days passed, Leo and his family became increasingly comfortable. Exceedingly comfortable, in fact. What had started as a few bags and essential items multiplied until my storage closets were overflowing with their belongings. Boxes lined one wall of my living room, labeled with Maya's distinctive looping script. Winter clothes, kitchen stuff, Leo's collections. The house rules I had so carefully established began to crumble almost immediately. The initial casualty was the quiet hours policy. I had explained that I needed silence from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on my work-from-home days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. By the second Wednesday, that rule had been completely forgotten. Uncle Leo watched this. Finn shouted, jumping from the couch to the love seat while I was on a video call with my entire marketing team. I hastily muted myself and closed my bedroom door, but the damage was done. My boss, Vivian, had raised an eyebrow at the commotion. "Family staying with you?" she asked when I rejoined the call. "Temporarily," I confirmed, my cheeks flushed with mortification. "Sorry about that." The designated food shelves were the next boundary to fall. I came home one evening to find my carefully prepped meal plan ingredients for the week completely gone. In their place was a hastily scribbled note. "Needed to make dinner. Will replace soon." The replacements never appeared. The first real confrontation came when I discovered Willow had gotten into my makeup collection and appropriated my pricey foundation and eyeshadow palettes as finger paints on the bathroom walls. "Children will be children," Maya said with a shrug when I showed her the damage. "She's only 4. She doesn't know any better." "That palette cost $80, I said, trying to keep my voice level, "and I've told both children repeatedly that my bedroom and bathroom are off limits." "Well, maybe you shouldn't display alluring items where little hands can reach them," she replied as if I had been negligent rather than having my private space invaded. Leo was no help. When I approached him about the incident, he was sprawled on my sofa, controller firmly clutched, engrossed in his latest video game. "Maya handles the discipline stuff," he said without looking away from the screen. "But hey, if it means that much to you, I can pick up some makeup next time I'm out." "That's not the point," I tried to explain. "It's about respecting boundaries and teaching the children to do the same." He paused the game and gave me a look of exasperation. "They're just kids, Clara. Lighten up a little. It's not like we're staying forever." But as days turned into weeks with no sign of Leo's promised job materializing or any apartment hunting taking place, I began to suspect that might, indeed, be the reality. And I wasn't the only one noticing. "Have Leo and Maya mentioned when they might be moving out?" Arthur asked during our weekly phone call, his voice carefully neutral. "No," I admitted. "And I'm starting to think they don't have a plan." Arthur sighed. "Your mother thinks they just need more time." "More time for what?" I asked, unable to keep the frustration from my voice. Leo's not even looking for work, as far as I can tell. He plays video games all day. He says he's applying for jobs online, Arthur said, though he didn't sound convinced himself. Well, something needs to change, I told him. This arrangement isn't working. Just hang in there a little longer, Arthur pleaded. For your mother's sake, you know how she worries about them. And so I did, though my patience was wearing thinner by the day. The temporary arrangement was starting to feel alarmingly permanent, and my once peaceful home had been transformed into a chaotic, overcrowded space that no longer felt like mine. Little did I know that things were about to get much, much worse. Life with unwanted roommates quickly became unbearable. Every aspect of my carefully ordered existence was disrupted by Leo, Maya, and their children. My mornings, once tranquil rituals of coffee and meticulous daily planning, transformed into frantic races to use the bathroom before someone else claimed it for an hour. My evenings, formerly quiet retreats from the busy workday, were now filled with children's cartoons blaring at top volume and Leo's exasperated shouts at his gaming sessions. The food situation reached crisis levels by the third week. Despite our agreement about designated shelves, I would open the refrigerator to find my meal prep containers empty, with distinctive evidence of Leo's nocturnal snacking habits. The organic produce I invested in vanished without a trace, only to be replaced occasionally with the cheapest possible alternatives. I bought groceries, Leo announced proudly one day, depositing 2 meager bags on the counter. Inside, I found white bread instead of my usual whole grain, the cheapest lunch meat available, and a 6-pack of Leo's favorite beer. This barely equates to what you typically consume, I pointed out. He shrugged. Food is food. What's the big deal? The big deal became apparent when I reviewed my credit card statement at the end of the month. My grocery bill had doubled, while the pledged contribution from Leo and Maya remained entirely theoretical. When I asked about the $200 they had agreed to provide for utilities and food, Leo always had an excuse. We're still waiting for my last paycheck from the warehouse, he said the first time. Maya claimed she needed to purchase new footwear for the children, was the excuse the following week. We'll definitely get it to you next Friday, he promised after that, a Friday that never seemed to arrive. Meanwhile, the utility bills skyrocketed with 4 additional people using water, electricity, and heat. My carefully budgeted monthly expenses were completely derailed. The hot water tank, sufficient for one person's needs, couldn't keep up with 5 people. I found myself taking cold showers more often than not, as Leo's family seemed to use up the hot water without consideration for anyone else. My internet, crucial for my work, regressed to a glacial pace during important video conferences because Leo was streaming games or movies on multiple devices simultaneously. When I asked him to limit usage during my working hours, he acted as if I was being unreasonable. I need it for job searching, he claimed, though a cursory glance at his search history when helping Willow with an educational video showed hours of gaming portals and sports recaps. Working from home became nearly impossible. Despite repeated requests for quiet during business hours, the apartment was constantly filled with noise. Finn chased Willow through the living room, their shrieks of laughter piercing through my closed bedroom door during client calls. Maya talked loudly on her phone, gossiping with friends or arguing with customer service representatives about bills she hadn't paid. Apologies for the ambient noise became my standard opening for every work call. My boss, Vivian, was understanding at first, but her patience visibly wore thin as weeks passed with no improvement. Clara, is your home situation affecting your ability to meet deadlines? She asked after I submitted a project late for the first time in my career. No, I lied, fighting back tears of frustration. It won't happen again. Privacy became a distant memory. I would return from a rare evening out to find Maya wearing my clothes, which she returned either stretched out or conspicuously stained. My bathroom products disappeared or were returned nearly empty. Once I discovered Finn using my expensive work laptop to watch YouTube videos, his grubby fingers leaving discernible marks on the keyboard. He was bored and your computer was just sitting there, Maya explained when I objected, as if my work tools were communal property. The final straw came when I discovered my grandmother's antique silver jewelry box had been moved from my dresser, its contents rearranged. When confronted, Maya admitted Willow had been playing dress-up with my cherished heirloom pieces, one of which was now conspicuously absent. "Kids misplace things," she said dismissively. "It'll turn up." It never did. After a month of this chaos, I attempted to discuss the situation with my parents, hoping they might see reason and help find another solution for Leo's family. "Mom, this isn't working," I explained during a private lunch. "My apartment is too small for 5 people. Leo and Maya aren't contributing financially. The children have no boundaries." Rather than sympathy, I was met with disappointment. "They're going through a difficult time," Eleanor said, her voice taking on the self-sacrificing tone I knew all too well. "Leo is genuinely grappling with finding employment in the current economic climate." "He's not looking," I countered. "He plays video games all day while Maya watches talk shows." "That's not fair," Eleanor said sharply. "Leo has always had trouble finding his path. Not everyone possesses your innate organizational aptitude." The implication stung. My success was innate. It was the result of hard work and sacrifice, neither of which Leo seemed capable of. "Besides," Eleanor continued, "where would they go? You wouldn't want your niece and nephew homeless, would you?" And there it was again, the quintessential guilt manipulation. The suggestion that enforcing reasonable boundaries somehow made me a monster who wanted to see children on the street. "There are other options," I insisted. "They could apply for housing assistance. Or maybe they could stay with you and Dad for a while." Eleanor looked utterly aghast at the suggestion. "We don't have the space, and at our age, we couldn't handle 2 active children running around." The irony that she expected me to manage this while building my career was apparently lost on her. Arthur was slightly more sympathetic when I called him later, but no more helpful. "I understand it's difficult," he said. "But your mother is set on helping them through this tough patch. You know how she gets when her mind's made up." "So, I'm just supposed to put my life on hold indefinitely?" I asked. "It won't be indefinitely," he assured me, though he offered no timeline or plan. As the situation at home deteriorated, my work performance suffered. The campaign I was leading fell behind schedule. Errors crept into my presentations. Dark circles under my eyes became a permanent feature, as sleep became difficult in my own home. Vivian called me into her office after I briefly succumbed to sleep during a team meeting. "What's going on with you?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "This isn't like you at all." I broke down and told her everything: the impossible living situation, my parents' enabling behavior, the financial strain. "You need to fix this," she said, not unkindly. "Not just for your career, but for your well-being. Sometimes family takes advantage precisely because they know you won't say no." She was right, of course, but I still didn't see a way out that wouldn't cause a family explosion. Little did I know my mother was about to light the fuse herself. 6 weeks into the temporary living arrangement, my mother decided to make an unscheduled visit to assess the situation. I came home from work to find her sitting on my couch, Maya beside her, both drinking tea from my cherished ceramic mugs. "Clara, there you are," Eleanor said as if she had been waiting for hours, though I was actually 20 minutes early returning from the office. "I thought we should talk about how things are going." My heart sank. These talks never went in my favor. "Let me change first," I said, heading toward my bedroom. I nearly tripped over Finn's toys scattered across the hallway and had to squeeze past 3 boxes of Leo's memorabilia that had somehow migrated from the living room to outside my door. When I entered my bedroom, I found Willow napping on my bed. Sticky residue from whatever she had been eating was visible on my pillowcase. Taking a deep breath, I changed quickly and returned to the living room where my mother was surveying the apartment with a critical eye. "The place is a bit messy," she commented. I bit back a sarcastic response. The understatement was almost comedic. My once immaculate apartment looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Dishes filled the sink despite my repeated requests that everyone clean up after themselves. Laundry spilled out of hampers. Toys, shoes, and random belongings covered every surface. It's difficult to keep things tidy with 5 people in a space designed for 1 or 2, I said carefully. That's actually what I wanted to discuss, Eleanor said, setting down her tea. This arrangement clearly isn't ideal for anyone. For a moment, hope flared in my chest. Had she finally recognized the impossibility of the situation? Leo and Maya need more space for the children, she continued, dashing my hopes immediately. They can't keep living with all their belongings in boxes. I agree, I said cautiously. They should find their own place as soon as possible. Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. That's not realistic right now. Leo's still looking for work, and rents are so high. Then what do you suggest? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew the answer. Well, she said, leaning forward, your father and I have been talking. We think it would make sense for you to take the smaller bedroom and let Leo and Maya have the master. That way, the children could have the second bedroom instead of sleeping in the living room. I stared at her in disbelief. You want me to give up my bedroom in my own apartment? It would just be until they get back on their feet, Eleanor said, using the phrase that had lost all meaning. And since there are more people living here now, we thought it would be fair if you paid a bit more rent. More rent, I repeated. Surely, I had misheard. Just double what you're paying now, she said casually, as if suggesting I buy a slightly more expensive coffee. After all, you're the only one with a steady income, and there are 5 people using the space and utilities. The room seemed to tilt around me. I looked at Maya, who was studying her nails, as if this conversation had nothing to do with her. Then back at my mother, whose expression held the serene conviction of someone who anticipated unquestioning compliance. Let me get this straight, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. You want me to give up my bedroom, continue doing all the cleaning since no one else bothers, pay for all the groceries that everyone eats, and now pay double rent on top of that for the privilege of living in my own apartment with people who don't respect my space or belongings? Eleanor's expression solidified. I think you're being selfish, Clara. This is about family helping family. Leo would do the same for you if the situations were reversed. The hollow laugh that escaped me held no humor. No, he wouldn't. Leo has never helped anyone but himself, and you've enabled him every step of the way. That's not fair, Eleanor protested. Fair? You want to talk about fair? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I've worked hard for everything I have. I pay my bills. I take responsibility for my life. Leo is 32 years old and has never held a job for more than 6 months. He hasn't made a single effort to find work or another place to live since moving in here. And now you expect me to subsidize his lifestyle even more than I already am? You've always been excessively critical of your brother, Eleanor said, her voice taking on the wounded tone that had worked on me countless times before. He just needs a little more support than you do. A little more support, I echoed incredulously. I've been supporting him, his partner, and their children for weeks, and not one word of thanks from any of them. Not a single financial contribution to expenses. Nothing but entitlement and disrespect. At that moment, Leo walked in, a 6-pack of beer under his arm. He surveyed the scene, my flushed face, Eleanor's tight expression, Maya's studied indifference. What's going on? He asked, dropping onto the couch and opening a beer without offering one to anyone else. Mom thinks I should pay double rent for the privilege of having you live here, I said directly. What do you think about that? Leo shrugged. Seems fair. There are more people living here now. And what exactly are you contributing to this arrangement? I demanded. Hey, we're family, he said, as if that explained everything. We help each other out. When I get back on my feet, I'll return the favor. When has that ever happened? I asked. When have you ever repaid a single thing that's been given to you? You're being dramatic, Leo said, taking a long swallow of beer. It's not a big deal. If you can't handle having us here, just say so. I can't handle having you here, I said flatly. The silence that followed was deafening. You don't mean that, Eleanor finally said. You're just tired and stressed from work. No, I mean it. This situation is impossible, and I'm done enabling it. Eleanor stood up, her expression a mixture of disappointment and anger. I expected better from you, Clara. Family is supposed to stand by each other. This isn't standing by each other, I countered. This is one person carrying everyone else while they take advantage. If that's how you feel, Eleanor said coldly, then your father and I will have to reconsider our arrangement with you. What does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. It means that if you're not willing to help your brother in his time of need, perhaps we need to find a tenant who will be more cooperative. The threat hung in the air, explicit and unavoidable. Submit to their demands or lose my home entirely. I see, I said, a strange calm settling over me. I'll think about it. Eleanor seemed satisfied with this apparent capitulation. Good. Your father and I expect your decision by the end of the week and the increased rent starting next month. After she left, Leo returned to his video game as if nothing had happened. Maya disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me standing alone in what no longer felt like my own living room. That night, I lay awake in bed, tears of frustration and betrayal soaking my pillow. The family I had always tried so hard to please had made their priorities crystal clear. I was not a daughter to be loved and respected, but a resource to be drained. As dawn broke, I reached for my phone and texted Chloe. You were right. I need help. Her response came immediately. What's the plan? For the first time in weeks, I smiled. I was done being the reliable one perpetually taken advantage of. It was time to put myself first. The morning after my mother's outrageous demand, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. If my family saw me as nothing more than a source of housing and income for my brother, then I needed to extricate myself from the equation entirely. I would find my own place without telling any of them until it was too late to stop me. First, I needed to assess my finances. I had been saving for a down payment on a house someday, but those plans would have to wait. Instead, I would use part of those savings to secure a new apartment, something affordable enough that I could continue saving, even if at a slower pace. During my lunch break at work, I created a detailed spreadsheet of my monthly income and expenses, carefully calculating how much I could afford for rent while still maintaining my emergency fund. The numbers were tight but workable, especially considering I would no longer be supporting 4 additional people. What are you working on so intently? Vivian asked, pausing by my desk. Just planning my escape, I said with a small smile, her eyebrows raised. From the family invasion. Good for you. I need to find a new place fast and move out without them knowing, I explained. Otherwise, they'll try to manipulate me into remaining or pursuing me to the new place. Take tomorrow off, Vivian offered unexpectedly. Use the day to apartment hunt. You've earned some personal time, and honestly, I need you operating at peak efficiency, once more. I gratefully accepted her offer. That night, I went home and acted as if nothing had changed, offering tepid smiles at Leo's jokes and helping the children with their bedtime routine while secretly researching apartments on my phone whenever I had a private moment. The next day, I visited 6 different properties across the city. The first 2 were depressing, dark, cramped spaces that would have been a significant downgrade from my current apartment. The third was in a neighborhood that would have doubled my commute time. The fourth was nice but well above my budget. The fifth possibility, a 1-bedroom apartment in a small building owned by an elderly couple, seemed promising until I learned they had a strict no overnight guests policy that would make it difficult to have friends visit. It was the 6th and final apartment of the day that gave me hope. The building was owned by Mr. Caldwell, a kind elderly man who lived on the 1st floor and rented out the 3 units above. The available apartment was on the 2nd floor, a charming 1-bedroom with polished hardwood floors, expansive windows inviting abundant natural light, and a compact balcony overlooking a quiet street. My wife and I bought this building 40 years ago, Mr. Caldwell explained as he showed me around. We've always believed in being fair landlords. No surprises. Prompt repairs and respect for our tenants' privacy. The rent was slightly higher than I had hoped to pay, but still within my revised budget, and something about Mr. Caldwell's unpretentious kindness instilled a sense of security in a way I desperately needed. I need to move in quickly, I said. Would that be possible? How quickly? He asked. Within 2 weeks, ideally. He thought for a moment, then nodded. The apartment will be ready by next weekend. If you want it, it's yours. I signed the lease on the spot, paying the security deposit and first month's rent from my savings. As I handed over the check, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. I was taking control of my life again. The next challenge was figuring out how to move my belongings without alerting Leo and his family. I knew they wouldn't make it easy if they realized what I was doing. First, I needed to determine what was truly important to take with me. The furniture in the apartment technically belonged to my parents, so I would leave that behind. My personal belongings, clothes, jewelry, books, electronics, and sentimental items would come with me. Everything else could be replaced over time. I started by secretly packing a few items each day, things that wouldn't be immediately missed. A box of winter clothes from the back of my closet, books from the bottom shelves of my bookcase, kitchen items I rarely used. I stored these boxes in the trunk of my car or took them directly to the new apartment when I knew everyone would be out for a few hours. For larger furniture items I would need, I scoured secondhand shops and online marketplaces, finding affordable pieces I could have delivered directly to the new apartment. A comfortable but inexpensive sofa, a simple bed frame and mattress, a small dining table with 2 chairs. None of it matched my carefully curated aesthetic from before, but it would serve until I could upgrade gradually. I also took steps to protect myself financially. I opened a new bank account at a different bank than the one my parents used, ensuring they would have no way to access my funds. I changed all my passwords and set up mail forwarding to my new address. I made sure my important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, were secured in my desk at work rather than at the apartment where they might be discovered missing. The most difficult part was upholding the pretense at home. I had to pretend everything was normal, that I was still considering my mother's demand for double rent while secretly disassembling my life there, piece by painstaking piece. "Have you thought about what your mother suggested?" Arthur asked during our weekly phone call. "I'm still considering my options," I said carefully. "Your mother thinks you're being stubborn," he said with a sigh. "But between you and me, I think she's asking too much. Just don't tell her I said that." His words confirmed what I already knew. Arthur disagreed with Eleanor but wouldn't contradict her, not even for my sake. "I'll figure something out," I assured him. And I had, just not in the way any of them expected. As the move-out date approached, I enlisted Chloe's help for the final phase. She arrived early on a Saturday morning when Leo and his family were visiting my parents. "I can't believe you're really doing this," she said as she helped me pack the last of my belongings. "I'm proud of you, but also a little shocked." I didn't think I had it in me either, I admitted as I carefully wrapped my grandmother's remaining jewelry in tissue paper, but they left me no choice. We worked quickly, loading everything into Chloe's SUV and my sedan. By noon, all traces of my personal life had been removed from the apartment. All that remained were the furniture, basic kitchen supplies, and household items I was leaving behind. Before leaving, I took one last look around the place that had been my home for 5 years. Despite the current chaos, I had loved this apartment and made it my own. Now it would be Leo's problem and, by extension, my parents'. On the kitchen counter, I left an envelope containing my keys and a short note. "I found my own place. Good luck." That night, in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and mismatched furniture, I felt a strange combination of emotions. Grief for the relationship with my family that would never be the same, anxiety about their reaction when they discovered what I'd done, but overwhelmingly, relief. For the first time in months, I was sleeping in a space that was truly mine, with no one to answer to but myself. I texted Chloe before going to bed. "Mission accomplished. Freedom feels strange, but good." Her response made me smile. "Welcome to the first day of your new life. You deserve this." As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered how long it would take my family to notice I was gone, and what chaos would ensue when they did. But for once, I didn't feel responsible for managing that chaos. It wasn't my problem anymore. The first call came at 9:15 the next morning. I watched Eleanor's name flash on my phone screen, took a deep breath, and let it go to voicemail. I wasn't prepared for that particular conversation yet. I needed to finish setting up my new apartment, to create a haven before confronting the impending storm. By noon, I had 5 missed calls from Eleanor, 3 from Arthur, and a torrent of increasingly bewildered texts from Leo. Where are you? Did you stay at a friend's? Mom and Dad are here and freaking out? Seriously, Clara, what's going on? I silenced my phone and continued unpacking, organizing my kitchen with the few utensils and dishes I had brought with me. Mr. Caldwell had stopped by earlier with a welcome basket containing bread, honey, and a small potted plant. His simple kindness had brought tears to my eyes. Around 3 p.m., I decided I was as settled as I could be for one day. I sat on my new sofa, took a deep breath, and called my mother back. Clara, where are you? She demanded without a single preliminary word. We've been worried sick. I've moved out, I said calmly. I found my own place. There was a moment of stunned silence. What do you mean you've moved out? That's not possible. All your things are there.
No, Mom.
I moved everything important yesterday while Leo and his family were at your house. I left the furniture since it belongs to you and Dad. But, she sputtered, visibly struggling to assimilate this information. You can't just leave. What about your brother? What about the children? They are no longer my burden, I said firmly. They're your responsibility since you've decided to enable Leo's behavior, and Leo's responsibility since they're his family. This is completely unacceptable, Eleanor said, her voice rising. You had an agreement with us. An agreement you were trying to change unfairly, I reminded her. You wanted me to pay double rent to house Leo and his family. That made no financial or logical sense. We're coming over right now, she declared. Where are you? No, I said simply. I'm not telling you where I live now. I need some space from all of you. Clara Annalise Price. You tell me where you are this instant. The use of my full name, a tactic that had been effective when I was a child but now held no sway over the adult I had become, almost made me laugh despite the tension. Mom, I'm a 28-year-old adult with my own life. I don't have to tell you where I live if I don't want to. And right now, I don't want to. I could hear my father in the background asking what was happening and Leo's voice joining the confusion. Your father wants to speak with you, Eleanor said stiffly. Arthur's voice, weary and tinged with concern, came through. Clara, what's going on? Your mother is very upset. I moved out, Dad. I found my own apartment where I don't have to support Leo and his family or pay double rent for the privilege of doing so. He sighed heavily. I understand you were upset about the rent increase, but this seems extreme. It wasn't just the rent increase, I explained. It was the complete lack of respect for my space, my belongings, and my life. It was the expectation that I would indefinitely support 4 additional people with no end in sight. It was Mom threatening to evict me if I didn't comply with her unreasonable demands. She wouldn't have actually evicted you, Arthur said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced himself. It doesn't matter now, I replied. I've made my decision. I've signed a lease. I'm not coming back. What about Leo and the kids? They're still in the apartment. That's between you and Leo. The apartment is your property. What you do with it is your business now. There was a prolonged silence before Arthur spoke again. Your mother wants to come see your new place. Not yet, I said firmly. I need some time and space. Maybe in a few weeks if things calm down. She's not going to like that. I know, but this isn't about what she likes anymore. It's about what I need. After ending the call with my father, I turned my phone off completely and spent the rest of the day making my new apartment feel like home. I hung curtains, arranged my books on shelves, and ordered takeout from a new restaurant in the neighborhood. It was the most peaceful evening I'd had in months. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find it brimming with notifications, more missed calls from my parents, angry texts from Leo, even a tear-choked voicemail from Maya claiming the children were asking where I had gone. The most revealing message was from my father. Your mother went to the apartment. She was quite shocked by the state of it. Leo alleges you absconded with items that weren't yours. I called Arthur back immediately. What is Leo claiming I took? He says you took kitchen appliances that came with the apartment. I let out a disbelieving laugh. The only kitchen appliances I took were the ones I bought myself, my coffee maker, my blender, and my stand mixer. Everything that came with the apartment is still there. Well, the place is apparently in quite a state, Arthur said. Your mother is very upset about it. I'm sure she is, I replied. Leo and his family have been systematically degrading it for weeks. That's part of why I left. She says it's going to cost hundreds to clean and repair everything. That sounds like a conversation she should be having with Leo, not me. Arthur was quiet for a moment. They don't have anywhere else to go, Clara. They could go to your house, I suggested, knowing exactly how that would be received. You're aware that's not a viable option, he said quickly. We don't have the space, and your mother couldn't handle the children running around all day. So, it was fine to expect me to handle it while trying to build my career, but not fine to expect you and Mom to handle it in your retirement? He had no answer for that. Over the next few days, the calls and messages continued, oscillating between guilt-inducing tactics, outright anger, and tentative attempts at reconciliation. Eleanor insisted I was tearing the family apart. Leo accused me of forsaking my niece and nephew. Arthur made tepid attempts at mediation, never quite taking a side. A week after I moved out, Leo called with a different tone. Mom and Dad say I have to start paying rent next month, he said, sounding genuinely taken aback. That seems reasonable, I replied. You're living in their property, but I can't afford rent. I don't have a job. Then maybe it's time to find one, I suggested, or apply for housing assistance, or any of the other solutions I mentioned weeks ago that everyone dismissed. This is your fault, he accused. Everything was fine until you left. No, Leo. Everything was convenient for you, because I was shouldering all the financial burdens and performing all the labor. Now you're experiencing the consequences of your own choices. He abruptly terminated the call. Chloe came over that weekend to see my new place and hear all the family drama. I'm astonished they're still attempting to make this your responsibility, she said as we sat on my small balcony drinking wine. Actually, I can believe it. They've been doing it for years. The difference is I'm not accepting it anymore, I said, surprising myself with how confident I felt. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and it feels amazing. You should have seen your face when you were living with them, Chloe said. You looked exhausted and miserable all the time. Now you positively radiate. It was true. Despite the ongoing family tension, I felt lighter than I had in years. My work performance improved immediately. I was sleeping through the night again. I was rediscovering passions I'd forsaken during the chaos. 3 weeks after my escape, Arthur called with news. Leo got a job, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. Nothing fancy, just stocking shelves at the grocery store, but it's something. That's good, I said, meaning it. What about Maya? She's watching someone's children a few days a week. Your mother is helping them look for an apartment they can afford. I'm glad to hear they're taking steps to support themselves, I said carefully. Your mother misses you, Arthur added. We both do. I miss you, too, I admitted. But I don't regret my decision. I know, he said softly. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Don't tell your mother I said that. It wasn't a full apology or acknowledgement of how wrong they had been, but coming from my father, who consistently shied away from confrontation, it was something. A small step toward rebuilding our relationship on more equal terms. 1 month after my dramatic exit, I was settling comfortably into my new life. My apartment, though smaller than my previous one, felt like a true sanctuary. I had arranged my belongings exactly as I wanted them, decorated with colors and patterns that reflected my personality, and established routines that prioritized my well-being. Each morning, I woke to peaceful silence, enjoyed my coffee on the small balcony, and prepared for work without interruption or chaos. The situation with my family was evolving in unexpected ways. After the initial shock and anger, reality had set in for my parents. With me gone, they had no choice but to deal directly with Leo and his financial irresponsibility. The comfortable buffer I had provided was no longer available. Arthur called me on a Sunday afternoon with an update that made me nearly drop my phone in surprise. Leo's working full-time now, he said, a note of pride in his voice that had been absent for years when discussing my brother. The The grocery store elevated him to shift supervisor after merely 3 weeks. That's great, I said, genuinely pleased. How's he handling the responsibility? Surprisingly well. Shows up on time. Hasn't missed a day. Even volunteered for some overtime last weekend. Arthur paused. Your mother would never admit it, but I think your leaving was the necessary wake-up call he needed. It turned out that facing actual consequences had forced Leo to grow up in ways that years of enabling had prevented. Without me to cushion the repercussions of his choices, he had finally had to step up. Maya, too, had found steady part-time work at a daycare center, which allowed her to bring Willow with her at a reduced rate. Finn was doing better in school now that his parents were establishing more structure and routine in his life. Most surprisingly, my parents had helped Leo and Maya secure their own apartment, a modest 2-bedroom unit within a reasonable housing complex. It wasn't exactly opulent living, but it was clean, safe, and within their budget now that both were working. Your mother and I co-signed their lease, Arthur explained. But we made it clear we won't be paying their rent. This is their responsibility now. The shift in my parents' approach was remarkable, though I suspected it was more a byproduct of necessity than a deliberate choice. Without me as the family safety net, they had been forced to either let Leo flounder or empower him to navigate the currents himself. They had chosen the latter, much to everyone's benefit. My connection with Eleanor remained fraught. Her inherent pride rendered it challenging for her to concede how unfairly she had treated me or how her enabling had harmed Leo in the long run. But even she was showing small signs of growth. Your mother asked for your new address, Arthur mentioned during one of our calls. She wants to send you something. I provided it with some hesitation, curious but wary. A few days later, a package arrived containing my grandmother's silver locket, the piece of jewelry that had gone missing when Willow was playing with my things. With it was a concise note in Eleanor's familiar hand. This rightfully belongs with you. Maya found it in Willow's toy box. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a gesture of reconciliation. I called to thank her. Our first direct conversation in weeks that didn't dissolve into accusations. The children ask about you, she said tentatively. They miss their aunt. I miss them, too, I admitted. They're good kids, even if the situation was impossible. We're having a small birthday dinner for Finn next weekend, she ventured. Nothing fancy, just family. Would you consider coming? I took a deep breath, considering my answer carefully. I'd like that, I said finally. But, Mom, things have to be different now. I need you to respect my boundaries. There was a long pause before she responded. I'm trying to understand that, she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. Your father has helped me see some things more clearly. The birthday dinner was stilted, but not catastrophic. Leo appeared more subdued, less entitled than previously. Maya deliberately extended her gratitude for the gift I brought for Finn. My parents watched our interactions carefully, as if unsure what the new family dynamic should be. As we ate cake, Finn looked up at me with frosting on his chin. Aunt Clara, why did you move away? Didn't you like living with us? The adults at the table froze in unison, but I appreciated Finn's candidness. I loved spending time with you and Willow, I said honestly. But adults need their own space sometimes, just like you need your own room to play and sleep in. He considered this seriously, like how Arthur becomes irritable if I touch his work uniform. Exactly like that, I agreed, exchanging a surprised glance with Leo. The fact that he had a work uniform he cared about was progress in itself. After dinner, Leo pulled me aside while the others were cleaning up. I never thanked you, he said, looking uncomfortable but determined, for everything you did for us when we stayed with you. You're welcome, I said simply. I was a terrible roommate, he continued, and a worse brother. I took advantage because I knew you wouldn't kick us out. No, I wouldn't have, I agreed. That's why I had to leave instead. He nodded. It was a wake-up call. When you left and Mom and Dad said we had to start paying rent or find somewhere else, I realized no one was going to fix my life for me. That's a hard lesson, I acknowledged.
Yeah.
Well, I should have learned it about 15 years ago. He gave a sheepish smile. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I get it now why you left, and I don't blame you. It wasn't a comprehensive reckoning for years of entitled conduct, but it was a start, a recognition that things had been unbalanced and unfair. I appreciated the effort. In the months that followed, I continued to build my independent life while cautiously rebuilding relationships with my family on new terms. I had dinner with my parents twice a month, but always returned to my own space afterward. I occasionally took Finn and Willow for special outings, but with clear boundaries about time and expectations. At work, my career continued to thrive. The campaign I had struggled with during the family crisis became a major success once I could focus on it properly. Vivian recognized my contributions with a significant raise and expanded responsibilities. "You seem like yourself again," she commented after I presented a new concept to our biggest client. "It's good to have you back." Chloe remained my staunchest advocate and confidant. 6 months after my move, we celebrated with an anniversary of my liberation dinner at my favorite restaurant. "To standing up for yourself," she toasted, raising her glass, "and discovering your own strength in the process." "I never thought I could do it," I admitted. "Walk away from my family, set boundaries, put myself first. It always seemed selfish." "There's a difference between being selfish and practicing self-care," Chloe pointed out. "You couldn't keep continually setting yourself ablaze to provide warmth for others." She was right. The most surprising discovery of this journey wasn't just that I could survive without catering to my family's demands, it was that I could truly flourish. My career was advancing faster than ever. I was cultivating profound friendships and connections. I was even re-entering the dating scene, something that had been impossible in the chaos of my previous living situation. Most importantly, I had learned that declining unreasonable demands wasn't self-serving, it was imperative. By refusing to enable Leo's irresponsibility, I had inadvertently given him the opportunity to grow. By walking away from my parents' manipulation, I had forced them to reconsider their approach to both their children. 1 year after my escape, I achieved another milestone. I had saved enough to resume my original plan of buying my own home. It was a compact townhouse, a departure from the larger property I had once envisioned, but it was entirely mine. No landlord, no familial entanglements. At my housewarming celebration, I looked around at the small group I had invited. Chloe and her boyfriend, a few close colleagues, including Vivian, my new neighbors, and yes, my family, parents, Leo, Maya, and the children. All on my terms, in my space, celebrating my achievement. Arthur raised his glass for a toast. To Clara, who imparted a profound lesson on independence and fortitude to us all. "We're proud of you, sweetheart." Eleanor nodded in agreement, a gesture that would have felt utterly inconceivable a year prior. Later, as the party wound down, I stepped onto my new patio for a moment alone. The night air was cool and refreshing, filled with possibility. I thought about how far I had come from that desperate night when I realized my family saw me only as a resource to be exploited. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been tears, confrontations, and moments of doubt. But standing there in the home I had earned through my own efforts, I felt a deep sense of tranquility. I had discovered my own worth and the strength to protect it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to cease perpetuating detrimental patterns. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to disengage from situations that are detrimental, even when disguised as familial duty. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your own well-being and family expectations? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if it resonated with you. Subscribe to Echo Tales for more narratives about establishing boundaries and discovering your inner strength, and share with anyone who might benefit from this message today. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, your worth is not determined by how much you sacrifice